So we see it all the time, and especially in football. And right at the top, at the elite level, there always seems to be a really high manager turnover. And when new managers come in, people always suggest that there's this new manager bounce. So what is a new manager bounce, and what might the psychology say? I'm Matt Shaw, and this is a Sports Psychologist Breakdown. So what's actually going on, and what is a new manager bounce? Well, a new manager bounce is when a new manager comes in and people tend to suggest that performances improve. And this might actually be the case. So sometimes we see team performances improve, outcome improve, so if they win or they lose. And sometimes it seems like teams have this breath of fresh air and a new lease of life. But what does the psychology actually say? So the first way that we may be able to explain this manager bounce is that it's just a regression to the mean. And what we mean by this is that when a manager leaves a club, it's generally quite likely that the performances have been really poor and well below the average performance of that team. Especially if you take an elite football club, for example. Their performances are usually really high, but under the previous manager, those performances were really bad and really low. So when the new manager does come in and the performances start to go quite well, actually what we'd say is they're just regressing back to that mean performance that they should always have been at. So in that sense, all that's really happening is the team just goes back to performing at the levels that they should have done in the first place. So it might not be the new manager themselves. But let me give you another example, and a really easy way of looking at this is in a coin toss. So let's say I tossed a coin 10 times, and 7 of those times it came up as a heads. People might start suggesting that that coin is weighted towards heads, for example. Whereas we know if you zoom out for long enough and say you take 100 coin tosses, well actually that average goes back to about 50%. So in that sense, it regresses back to the mean. It could also be what's called a placebo effect, in that we think that there's going to be a difference, so that's what we start to see or start looking at. And in many ways, it could also be a confirmation bias, in that we think we start seeing positive performances, and we keep looking for things that might confirm our belief of that as well. As well as these psychological effects, what could also actually be happening is, as the new manager comes in, players that were either out of form or out of favour will have to start working harder to prove that they can get into that playing side. So as those players work harder and perhaps put more effort in, the team as a whole might start performing better as well. Another way to look at this is that when a new manager and their team come in and start working with players and other members of staff, they might bring with them new and improved expectations, or even really high expectations about behaviour, about attitude, and about performance. And there's a saying in psychology that no one rises to low expectations. So because of these newfound high expectations, people's performance could rise. The last way I think we can look at this is with emotional contagion. Now, emotional contagion is just the idea that emotions can transfer between people, kind of like the process of osmosis. And this is important because if a new manager comes in or their staff come in and there's a new positive outlook towards the way that things might be going, and because of that there's positive emotions being transferred between people, and this could be staff, this could be players, it could also be fans as well, then those positive emotions can help with the performances that we see on the pitch. So more positive emotions and perhaps more positive performances. So that's what I think the psychology behind the new manager bounce might be. And of course, if you like that video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more Sports Psychologist Breakdowns.